Okay, and we are live. Welcome to a new episode of All Things Xbox Podcast. Once again, I got Logan with me. Logan, how you doing this week?
Doing pretty good. Just been binging a lot of movies and playing some new games, and life's pretty good here. How about you, man?
Complaining about the weather 24/7. The heat is still unbearable here, even though it's raining constantly. Uh, but outside of all that, it's been good. Gaming has been good. And we have a lot to talk about this week. A lot of like mini topics and then some really big ones. But we'll get to that later on the show. But first up, Logan, what have you been playing this past week?
Well, I've been playing a lot of Octopath Traveler. Like that is a pretty meaty JRPG. And I've made it to Act 4 with all my characters but one of them. And so I have an Act 3 to finish with that character, and then Act 4s with all the others, and then epilogue stuff. And I love the game. I wholly recommend it, with the caveat that this game, JRPGs are infamous for grinding. It's just, you kind of just know
Oh
that.
yeah.
But this one is like, takes it to another level and is like, it's kind of ridiculous how you have to swap out your characters for certain story missions and stuff. And it's like, okay, recommended level is this. And it gets to a point where I kind of develop a party I just like in general, or maybe one or two alternates, and like a pretty steady 4 to 6 rotation. But then, there's 8 characters, and some of them get left behind pretty far level wise. And so when it comes to trying to advance their mission, it's like, sheesh, this character's only a 25 and they want him to be a 40 at least for this next mission. Am I really going to need to spend the next few hours grinding a ton to get this character up the level? Or should I just say to heck with it and do the mission anyway with all my other characters who are so powerful and just try to carry that character through it? So that's what I've been doing, and it's one of our topics, so I'll save my major thoughts for it. But the college football game just came out. I've been playing that. Really, really enjoying it. I'm glad it's back. Been playing that, and first Descendant, I hopped in and started that up, and I enjoy it.
Nice. Yeah, First Descendant's been popping off. We'll be talking about that in a bit. First Descendant has really resonated with a lot of people. I think, having a very high quality free to play game, which is like people really enjoy it, because the gameplay in that game is key. Like the story is a bit out there, obviously, but the gameplay is where it's at. And they absolutely nail the gameplay. The character designs people love for many reasons. People are buying expensive skins in that game and they're going for certain ones, but hey, it appeals to a certain demographic of gamers that just want to run around like that. But yeah, First Descendant's good. I've been playing a bit of that. Been playing some Avatar. Avatar, man, Avatar just never ends. like there's so much side content in that game, and you can just get lost. That you can spend like 90% of the time in that game just doing side activities. But that's kind of what makes it good. You just get lost in that game. And I know we were talking before we went live that we still refer, and everyone still refers to the current generation as next gen. And it's going to be like that for a while. But like Avatar is one of those games that makes you think, yeah, this is next gen. There's no game that looks like that. That just the forest is like so tall and rich, and like we've talked about this before, but if you go back and play Oblivion on the 360 and you walk around a forest, like the floor has this green texture on, so it's painted in grass basically, and it's kind of barren. There's not many trees. There's the occasional bear, but they're trying to do a forest back on the early 360 generation. But then you play Avatar, and it is mind-boggling how much foliage they have in that game. Just everywhere you go, 3D foliage. None of that painted on grass stuff that some games still do, but it's just beautiful. And the DLC is out today. That's the first major expansion. There's going to be another one out either later in the year. They haven't really specified when the second one's out, but there's going to be an entire new region in the second DLC, which I really can't wait for. I'm going to be playing that game for like the next year, essentially. But great game. And the other main game I've been playing is Fallout 4. Now, I'm trying to think how I can put this. Like, I bought the collector's edition day one. You know, the fancy Pip-Boy and the fancy box. And, you know, I talk about Fallout all the time being one of my favorite franchises. Fallout 3 is borderline perfection to me. I love Fallout 3. So you'd think, like, wouldn't I have played Fallout 4, especially considered it's one of my favorite games of all time, and I bought the collector's edition of 4, and basically the way scrap works in Fallout 4 broke my must be OCD. Right? So I didn't play that game for 9 years. It get its next gen update, and you know my friend that's been telling me for 9 years, just get over it, Jamie. Screw the scrap, just forget about it. And he was right. I don't have to worry about it. So I've had this amazing game just sitting on my shelf for 9 years, just sitting there, and I'm playing it, and I have to say, like, I don't understand any of the negativity towards Fallout 4. I think Fallout 4 is freaking phenomenal. You know, the dialogue system is different, but I actually like the fact it's different. It's just good. And you have to think about it like this. From a Fallout 3 fan's perspective, I used to spend countless hours walking around. Like, Logan, can you remember what DC looked like in that game?
Oh man, it was phenomenal. I loved exploring DC and all the stuff. I mean, it was very, you know, rubble like and
Yeah.
kind of granular a little bit with the visual fidelity, but I still remember being blown away by how huge it felt.
Yeah, like Washington DC in that game it's great, but as a Fallout 3 fan, I also realized that that whole map was grey, kind of yellowish and a bit green at the same time, and there wasn't much like diversity when it came to the map. Yeah, it was all the same, but that's kind of what they were going for. Just the whole city to be rubble, and it works. So for Fallout 4, it's amazing for me because I have this bright, colourful like map. Like the sky can be blue, and you have these bright orange buildings off in the distance, and then you can have like radiation storms, which makes the like the sky green and yellow, with like thunder and stuff. And I'm loving it. Like, Logan, I think you've already played Fallout 4, but would you say that the negativity towards Fallout 4 and that's had since launch is a bit overblown?
Yeah, I personally really enjoyed Fallout 4. I like you prefer 3 because of the story personally.
Yeah.
And like it was a different age, different time, like something with it. It was one of those kind of transformative like whoa. This is like an RPG but, you know, different. And I was like Oblivion but with radiation and guns. This sounds awesome. And because that was my first experience really with Bethesda too much, besides a little bit of Morrowind. So, yeah, Fallout 3 I still prefer, but Fallout 4 is really good. I like all the branching narratives and the quest lines and decisions. I feel like they did a I think the biggest complaint that a lot of people had with it, and I kind of agree, is that they kind of tried to do the BioWare dash Obsidian dialogue system and choices, Paragon or Renegade, light side, dark side, that type of stuff. But they did like a dollar store version of it compared to like who their influence was. Like I get what they were trying to do with it, but it just wasn't that great. But overall, the game and the graphics and the scope of it is fantastic. The DLCs are great. It's not perfect, but it's definitely not what people try to make it out to be.
Yeah, well, I'm loving it. And I think as a person that is obsessed with Mass Effect. I think that's why I like the dialogue. And yeah, right. It is like a dollar store version, but it's simple. It gets the job done. And the thing is, when it comes to Fallout 4, I'm a new player, right? And I'm sure everyone listening's like played Fallout 4 at some point. Like when Fallout 4 came out, I literally played the opening where you get to the vault after customizing your character. You see what happens in the opening, and then you leave the vault. And then I walked for maybe a mile. That's it. Like when I discovered how scrap worked in that game, I literally put the controller down. And I was like, I just can't do this. I can't do this at all. But before we continue with the topic, we have the first super chat of the day by Nick W. Thank you very much for the $10. He says the issues with Fallout 4 is the story and the settlement building is awful. Right, that's what I was going to get to. The settlement stuff. I've always seen memes for it over the years, and I never really understood it.
Another one needs saving.
Yeah, I always saw the memes of like the settlement being built and that, and Preston always calling for help, and I never really got it. And then now I finally hit a point yesterday where I was like, I want to throw myself out the window because I was getting notifications that certain farms were like unhappy and stuff. It's because I haven't been building turrets. I see a farm or a little settlement, and I just leave them to it. Like, let me explore. Just let me explore. So there, the settlement stuff is just terrible. I don't like micromanagement in games. So the settlement stuff for me is like, ugh. Like, I'm tempted to just get one of my friends over and let him do it for us, really, because he loved that stuff. But in the story, I have to agree. Like, even though I think I'm maybe like 25% through the main story. I've really been sticking to the side quests in Fallout 4, but Fallout 3's main story is just better. It just is. Like Fallout 3's main story, and then how it ends with you're attacking the capital, and you have that giant mech walking alongside you, like firing a laser beam out of its face. Like that was amazing. The way you find your dad and all that stuff, like that story was just better. But like in Fallout 4, it's like, oh no, someone stole my kid. Anyway, I've just found this dog and I'm going to build a house over here. Like, it doesn't make sense. But I think when it comes to Fallout, it's all about the exploration. And let's be honest, do people really care about the main story in Fallout 4? Like, as much as I'm loving the game, and I'm literally like smiling over my excitement over the game. But the main story, I have no want or need to tackle it anytime soon. There's so many branching storylines in like there's a small town called Good Neighbor outside of Diamond City, and I haven't even made it to Diamond City yet. Like, there's so many stories just in that one little town alone, and they just do such a good job with it. And yeah, that's why Fallout 4 is great. It's screw the settlement stuff, and like Nick W is right. Thank you for the $10. Like the settlement stuff, who cares? I get it if you're really into building and that stuff. That settlement stuff must feel like Christmas, right? It must feel amazing. But if you can't deal with micromanagement in video games, it's a nightmare. The story, no one cares, but the side quests, the exploration, like in an ideal world, I would love Bethesda to be able to make a Mad Max game. Like,
ooh, that'd be fun.
Like, maybe it's because I've watched Furiosa 3 times now. But like, I would love like a Fallout style game, but in the Mad Max universe. Obviously, they'd have to have cars, but yeah, Fallout 4 basically is what I've been playing a lot of. And Avatar. It's been a good year for games, and people are going to the back catalogs and stuff. There's the rumors that Avatar is also going to come to Game Pass soon, and like I said last week, I do think that's going to happen based on how Ubisoft's been like with recent releases. It's like Assassin's Creed Mirage sold absolute gangbusters, especially in the UK, and like I don't think Assassin's Creed Mirage would be coming to Game Pass anytime soon. But the way Avatar was handled, like Avatar was, as far as I know, it sold pretty poor compared to their expectations, because for new video game releases you need to do these things called marketing. They didn't do anything when it comes to marketing. Like, I know we've probably talked about this before when the game came out, but Logan, in the US, have you seen any marketing for Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora since it came out in December?
I've seen Jack on that. Like all I saw marketing wise was like a brief little marketing beat right before it came out, and then poof, nothing. And we talk price ad nauseum, but I think the lack of getting it out around the same time as Way of Water, and no marketing, and the pricing, Ubisoft doing what they do, and they have like 10 different versions of the game, and they're all priced like 70 plus. It it didn't help.
Yeah. Uh, and one of the reasons why I talk about that game so much is because it's not like this like underrated gem. It's like it's a genuinely amazing game. They just didn't market for some reason. Like I think maybe it's because they were thinking, hey, there was two films of this brand new franchise, and what 13 years apart from releasing at the cinema, and they both did over $2 billion. So I think Ubisoft was expecting word of mouth and just the fan base of Avatar to show up. But the problem with that is that Avatar has a huge fan base that are basically just normies. People that don't play video games, that just like general cinema goers that want to see, action in a very immersive world. And this is probably one of the most immersive open world games I've ever played because you feel like you're on Pandora, like floating mountains which you can actually go to, and there's things to do there. And they've fixed basically every single issue I've had with the game since launch. Every single game. It's like every single issue, and it's just sad to see Ubisoft just not do much with it. And I hope we get a sequel at some point, but who knows? I'm gonna have to do some digging to see how much that sold because it really does deserve to do more. Like we always hear about Ubisoft games that done well, they sell like 10 million copies, and I've heard nothing about Avatar. But anyway, the new expansion's out today if people are interested. It looks really cool. There's new activities, brand new story mode. It looks like it's set after the main campaign. But yeah, looks good. And I've been playing Shadow of the Erdtree, which has been kicking me in, senseless. I put it this I finished Elden Ring back in the day. I beat all 160 bosses. It was heartache. I hate myself, and I loved it at the same time. And in this game, it's like it's more difficult, mainly because I'm terrible and I've had a 2-year break from it. But man, like it is a gorgeous open world. It's incredible. The bosses are great. It's just a really good game. The problem is that I keep getting lost. You basically have this like more condensed map of Elden Ring. It's about the size. It's a bit bigger than Limgrave, the main starting area in the main game, and it's very vertical. And there's like multiple different layers, and I keep getting lost. But again, that's a skill issue, and I'm not that good at Elden Ring anymore. But other than that, that's basically what I've been playing. Logan, I know you want to talk about this because I don't understand American football. However, I do know that college football has a lot of hype, and like my feed today has been like non-stop college football. Like a lot of people seem hyped. I know you've been talking for a long time about how this is going to do crazy numbers because people have been wanting college football to come back for a long time. And in the US, as far as I know, you've only had Madden to play for like a decade now. So like Logan, how's the new college football game?
I mean, I'm loving it's awesome. I haven't spent too much time with it yet, but the little I've played so far has been it it feels like this massive just shot of nostalgia. Like it just it feels great. Like I am incredibly rusty at it because I haven't played a college football game in a hot minute. It's been more than a decade since 2014 released, and it but it harkens back to those feelings. Like if you're someone from our era or a little bit younger than us, like you probably remember playing those growing up, and they, especially if you're from the states, and it was just a huge pop culture thing. Like dorms would have parties or lands, and you know, people would make dynasty modes or leagues and, create all the rosters and, recruiting and all that. And it's like they've taken that and taken everything up a notch. And dynasty mode is really in depth and crazy. There's so much custom league stuff you can do. The playability is really good. The visuals are good. I mean, the visuals have never been like the major selling point. Like
Yeah.
obviously it looks good, but it's more about the atmosphere and just the experience and the vibe of wow, like I don't know much like you don't know much about college football. I don't know a ton about soccer or
Yeah.
European football. Um, but like over here, like the different schools have like different traditions. Like OU or Notre Dame, they both have this one tradition where they run out of the locker room and they tap the sign that says "Play like a champion" before they go out there. Or like Clemson University, like they have this big sprint where they run down this aisle pathway between the bleachers and they touch this big rock and then run across the field. Or like certain arenas have like a war chant tomahawk thing, and it's just like they've captured all these university traditions and alma maters, their songs, their bands, the fans, like they have it all in there. And they even go for broke with like pop culture and like meme type stuff in the game. Like I'm sure you've seen Surrender Cobras and stuff,
Yeah.
like from games and stuff. Like when your team loses or something horrible happens, is people put their hands on the back of their head. They look like a cobra, and they do all those really fun stuff and so much fun. Like I'm generally not a sports game guy. I like to play the sport or watch the sport, but when it comes to college football, like there's just something about it that I enjoy playing the game as well. And they've done a great job. And I normally don't buy the early edition premium, like, costs more just to get it a few days. But it's like, I've waited a decade plus for this. I'm going to get it and I'm going to play it and I'm going to talk about it for today. And it's been worth it. And apparently, I saw some stats on the timeline. I'm not sure how accurate they are, but apparently, if these stats are believed, that Xbox has sold within the last day or so since this game launched early, like the most in a day they've sold in years, like S's and stuff, because people, it's a next gen only game. So people are like, hey, I'm a normie or I'm mainly about college football or Call of Duty or GTA, whatever, and I need a system just to play the next gen games at a budget because I don't play that many games. So a lot of people apparently have flocked to a Series S or an X and bought the cheap thing and then buy the ultimate version of the game, and boom, they're in the ecosystem. And so I really do think this is going to put up just absolutely nutso numbers.
Yeah, I think it's good to see competition for those types of games as well, because sports games, like, they can be really locked in. Like, basketball basically belongs to 2K at the minute. I, I think EA used to do one, but they literally had a full game made. I think it was 2012 or 2011. EA basketball, and they literally had the full game made. It was about to release, and it was like shelved. I think a month before launch, just because they had no faith.
NBA Live.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what they used to make.
yeah, NBA Live, and like they just had no faith in it whatsoever. Football, what you guys call soccer. FIFA's been king for, I want to say, almost 20 years. We used to have Pro Evolution Soccer, which was the competition. Pro Evolution Soccer used to be the big dog, and then FIFA actually became good. They basically, ruled the game, and FIFA, the name's been taken away. The whole license situation's a bit of a mess. So people have been wanting more competition. And by the way, you can still play Pro Evolution Soccer by Konami now, but it's free to play, and I think you have to buy each team individually. Like, I'm not 100% sure, but their monetization tool is terrible. Well, anyway, a new football game got announced about a month and a half ago. It's called UEF or something, and it only has one mode apparently, and that's PvP online. So nobody's happy about that, and I think the state of sports games is like really miserable at the minute. People want more competition. Like, I don't really play sports games. I played the best FIFA game, FIFA '09, which will never be backwards compatible, and I could cry myself to sleep at night because it was so much fun. But it was amazing, and it's good to see that college football is at least providing some competition, because if you don't want to play Madden, you've got that, and even though it isn't also an EA game, you've still got more. And if I remember correctly, isn't 2K also working on a football game, American football?
They might be. I'm not as familiar with that. I know they're really good with obviously their basketball series 2K, and then they've incorporated a few college teams into it. There used to be college basketball games as well, but they're gone. And so they've incorporated a few teams into the NBA 2K game. But as far as like other college football games or other football games, it's pretty much Madden for professional, and then football, and then 2K for professional basketball. Now EA for college football again, and then baseball is the show.
Yeah. Well, it's good to see this competition happening. I think we need more of that in gaming, because I think that that goes towards any genre. We don't want one thing to just rule everything. I mean, I could beat my head against a wall about GTA not having any competition. And remember the time when we used to get GTA clones, or just open city games? That was fun. Now we don't get them.
Saboteur,
Yeah,
yeah, that was
Saboteur, amazing. He had Saints Row back when that was good. The Mafia games, Mercenaries could be thrown in there. Watch Dogs
Watch
even.
Dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now you have we're waiting for GTA 6. That's pretty much it. But yeah, we'll move on. Logan, I know you want to talk about Phasmaphobia, because that horror game's been out for a hot minute, and I know you've been telling me about this game for like a year now, and there's finally some console news.
Yes. This is just a brief update, but basically, Phasmophobia is, for those who are unfamiliar, it's this horror game that has been viral on Steam for a long time, very popular, and has a lot of success. And like, you have these encounters with ghosts and supernatural entities and beings and things, and you have a party of people together, and you can play VR or not VR, and you go around and you go like, okay, I've got my ghost hunting equipment. Okay, I need to read this or try to communicate with this ghost, or escape this haunting, or do certain horror movie show tropes to get to the next encounter or survive a situation or whatever. And it's been very well popular, very well done. People have been wanting it on console forever. A couple years ago, they announced at an Xbox show that it was coming to consoles. And I had been begging for it for years, so I was super excited. And then it kept going and going, and people are like, when is it coming? Like, you guys said it was coming to console. And then they gave a release date, and then not long before it was supposed to come out originally, they had a quote mysterious fire at their office. And that's like all they put. Like, they had some fire thing that happened at their office. And they delayed it inevitably. I mean, indefinitely. And so people, every time they would post something, people would be like, "Hey, where's the console version? Hey, 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 where's the console version?" And then they'd keep putting out tweets about little plushies of characters and updates for the PC version, and it was kind of like when everybody was begging for Black Ops 2 for BC. When Major Nelson would post something like, "Where's Black Ops, Larry? Where is it?" And so it got to a point they finally just released an update. Console version is coming Halloween this year, barring insane events again. It is coming Halloween this year. So everybody get your stream kits ready, your VR if you're into it. It's going to be a lot of fun. Unfortunately, on console, the voice features are not there at launch. It'll be text based, and hopefully they can add that later. But for somebody who is fine with that, it's like I don't care. It's $20. I get to play the game. I'm stoked. So look forward to that Halloween.
Nice. I think we need more. Like, it seems like horror games have been popping off for a few years now, but the ones on PC, like they just have way too many. Like way more than console. Like, bring them over. Same with RTS games. We have another release date reveal. So there's a game coming out, and this looks really cool. It's called The Casting of Frank Stone. It releases in September 3rd. It's, if I remember correctly, Logan, it's a horror game set in the Day by Deadlight. Is that what it's called? Universe? Dead by Daylight.
Yes. Yeah, it basically Supermassive, who does, the Dark Picture anthologies and Until Dawn, The Quarry. They partnered with the Dead by Daylight studio and devs to make an original narrative game in their expertise set in that universe with, an original antagonist killer type guy. And it looks super cool, and it's coming, I believe, early September.
Yeah, that looks like it's going to be good. Supermassive, like, they make really good chill horror games. I think we need more developers like that. They're really good. And by the way, that same developer, they also working on a new game that's a sci-fi horror game that's also set in the Dark Pictures universe. So,
Oh, yes, that
yeah,
one looks awesome.
yeah. So considering how they all connected, and then they all of a sudden are going to be, I think it's going to be set in the 2300s or something, and it's going to be set in space. Like, I don't know how they're going to connect that to, like, a World War II ship gone missing type thing. But hey, I'm looking forward to it. They make good games. Another release date reveal we got was, and this game looks super cool, and I hope more people pay attention. It's called IXION. It's on PC at the minute. It's coming to Xbox Series X and S and PlayStation 5 in 2025. And it's one of the coolest looking games I've ever seen. It's a sci-fi game where you basically have to transfer colonies of humans from one planet to another, but while you're transferring these humans from one planet to another, you have to actually build the colony up on this massive, like, space station that's also a spaceship, and also build habitats for when these people get to that planet. So it's basically a city builder, but on a giant spaceship. Now, that's right up my alley right there. Like, that's blatantly aimed at me. It looks really cool. Like, if the spaceship goes through, like, some sort of, like, solar storm or something, like, actual cutscenes will play of the ship going through, like, solar storms and stuff. Like, Logan, I know you originally told me about this game, but have you kept up with it at all? Because it looks super cool, and on PC it's actually been pretty popular.
I actually have not kept up with this of late, but I'm always down for more of the genre and type to come to console, so I'll for sure jumping in when it hits Xbox.
Yeah, it looks super cool, and I know we do port beg. I'll admit, like, port begging PC games to come to console, which, hey, I'll admit, and plus it works. Like,
It's been working for us.
yeah, it's been working, and I don't care how many times I'll have to, but I will in the future. I will keep port begging Homeworld 3. Right? I know for a fact that game can never work on a controller, but you know what? I don't care. I want it on console. I mean, at the minute, I think the consoles have came a long way if you think about it, because, like, back on, like, the 360 and the PlayStation 3 and the Wii, like, you had very console-centric games on console, and you had PC-centric games on PC. But like something happened last generation, maybe it's because the architecture is very similar, is that you have like tons of PC centric games on console. In fact, the highest rated game on Xbox right now is a PC game. That's City Skylines. Like people love that game on Xbox. Highest rated game. And I think it just goes to show that, people want more, variety on these consoles. People love the variety. Like, hell, even when Age of Empires came to Xbox and it launched in Game Pass, that was number 1 on the Xbox store in the UK. Like, that even shocked me. So it just goes to show that people want more of these types of games. We have MMOs popping off on Xbox at the minute. You have Final Fantasy XIV, which launched a few months ago. You also have a New World Eternum coming to Xbox. World of Warcraft, it looks like that probably will come to Xbox at some point. So, like, I love the fact that just there's so many different games coming. And some of them are weird, but that's kind of awesome. Like, throughout most of my podcasts, you'll notice in the background for people listening and watching at home, like, there's a lot of gameplay for this game called Hard Space Shipbreaker, where you're literally dismantling spaceships in 0G. Like, that game would have never came to console probably a generation or two ago because of how PC-centric it is. It's incredible, and I'll market the crap out of that game at every given opportunity because there's truly nothing like it. Anyway, we'll move on. Now, we had some weird Warhammer 40k news today, and I know a lot of people have been paying attention to this game because this game is very... how shall I put it, clearly aimed at Gears of War fans. So, Warhammer 40k Space Marine, third-person shooter with a campaign, which you can play in solo or up to 3-player co-op, 6v6 PvP modes, and a co-op mode. All of it looks fantastic. Nothing wrong with it, right? And the campaign looks amazing. It's got big set pieces. We don't really have third-person shooters like this now, outside of Gears. And everything's been looking fine. And then today, the Warhammer 40k Space Marine account put out this still image with text on it. Now, if you're a gamer, you know for a fact when you see that kind of tweet, it means a delay. It always means a delay. And that's not the case. It's still releasing this year. And it turns out the entire game has leaked online. So, I'll be putting this out there. I'll be not mentioning anything I've seen. No spoilers allowed at all on the channel because the developers have been working their arse off. Like, people argue online about games all day. Like, which console's better, which game's better, or all this stuff. But, like, there's so many good games coming out. People just kind of ignore it. They'd rather argue than, like, look forward to these really cool games that's coming. And, by the way, 90% of the games we all play, they're all multi-platform. That's the reality of the situation. But like Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2, and yes, that name is a mouthful. Like, that's been one of the most requested games for years. Every single Warhammer stream, like they've had for the past decade, 90% of the chat has been Space Marine 2 ? Like, people have been begging for a sequel. And then when it was revealed 3 years ago with a CGI trailer and literally 4 seconds of gameplay, that 4 seconds of gameplay told the fan base that we've been listening. And it turns out the developers have been paying attention to what people liked about the first game. And it looks like it's going to be the dream game people have been wanting for. And if, by the way, if people listening, you're not familiar with 40k Warhammer, trust me, I don't know anything about Warhammer, right? I just happen to play a lot of Warhammer games. And one of which I played back in the day was Warhammer 40k Space Marine. And it's Gears, essentially. It's just instead of a chainsaw gun, you have a chainsaw sword. Who doesn't want that in their life? I don't know. But yeah, the whole game leaks. Just hope people try and, stay clear of the spoilers online because it's going to be a great game. In fact, like, before every year comes out, obviously, I have this like mini prediction of what I think will be my game of the year for that given year. And going into 2024, I thought Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 will be my game of the year. Just off the trailers, the premise, everything about it, and everything I've seen so far, who knows, it might be. Although at the minute it's Dragon's Dogma 2. It looks like it's going to be a great game. Logan, do you think you'll be picking this up at any point? Because it looks like a Gears game, and from what I played in the first game, which was amazing, it's essentially Gears.
Oh, I'm for sure picking this up. Like, I might look into how much that collector's edition is with the
Yeah.
cool statue and him like raising up the alien with the chainsaw sword. Because I'm so down for this. It looks incredible. Like I thought it was Unreal Engine 5 at first, but apparently it's their own engine,
Yeah.
and it's just they're these guys know what they're doing. This looks incredible. It looks like grotesquely over the top, just wonderful. Just fighting these aliens with base like you. I don't know much about the Warhammer universe at all, except that you got these giant dudes with bass voices that have Roman centurion names that work for some empire of some sort, and they're like a kind of like a Brotherhood of Steel, but mixed with Roman Empire in space. And they're just like destroy all the filth, and so they go out there and they just wreck shop on aliens. And I mean, I'm sold. Like that's all the story I need for that. And it looks so cool. I can't wait. And to anybody out there, if that is listening, if they can, please make the first one BC or remaster it or port it or something, because like this is going to drive hype even more for more people to want to experience more of that universe.
Yeah, while you're talking, I just grabbed this here. I have my sealed copy right here. I've constantly had whoever published this game mixed up because I think it's different depending on which region you live in. So it was developed by the first game. It was developed by Relic Entertainment and published by THQ. So THQ Nordic, I believe, owns the publishing rights to the first game. Um, for the love of everything, whoever developer needs to or publisher needs to get in contact with, please get it done. like, the really sad thing is, it's like you can still buy it, right? You can buy it on Steam. I think it's also on GOG, and you can also buy it on Xbox 360 via digital purchase, right? So some publisher, I'm guessing it's THQ Nordic, clearly owns the rights. Pop out a remaster, right? You just have to put out the PC version with controller support, and you're good to go. Literally, it will sell. Warhammer 40. It's not even Warhammer fans, really. It's like third-person shooter fans. Like, as a Gears fan, I want more third-person shooters. Do you know what I don't have?
Amen.
Third-person shoot. Like, Logan, you have to notice, like, something happened last generation where third-person shooters just disappeared. Almost
Yeah,
completely.
like we went from the 360 era where there was so many of them, and like some were awful, but some were really good, and then there was a bunch of just okay ones, to the Xbox One generation where it was like basically a couple Gears games and that was it. Like hardly any. Like the Star Wars, Purge, where EA kept screwing around and couldn't figure out how to make a Star Wars game for like almost a decade until they did at the end of the generation. So I really, really want more of that genre. So please bring it back and keep making them. They're fun.
Yeah. Like, I love first person shooters. Don't get me wrong, but we just never get third person shooters. Like, unless Sony or Microsoft makes them or publishes them, like that's it. I think that's why people really like Alan Wake. But then you can put horror games in its own category. I'm rambling. Long story short, we need more third person shooters. Warhammer looks great. Highly recommend people pay attention to it. And the way a Space Marine 1 works is that it essentially just throws you into the action. You don't really have much heavy exposition. Like, you don't really need it with that. Hey, go out there with your chainsaw sword, get rid of aliens. That's literally it. That's the plot. But it's amazing at the same time. And I think, Gears fans specifically will love it. Now, last game update that we have is Aliens Fireteam Elite. I keep putting on gameplay in the background. That game was really popular. You know, it had a year. I think it was a year and a half of content. They put out tons of maps, more campaign content, and people liked it. You know, it was essentially a Left 4 Dead but with aliens and in third person. And it turns out the sequel, basically all the information about it's leaks. Now, with respect to the developers, I'm not gonna go over everything that's leaked, but I'm gonna go over some things which I think people will like. So the first game had I think it was a 4-act campaign, each consisting of 3 or 4 missions, and it was essentially Left 4 Dead. You know, you play through a scenario, get from point A to point B, done. Work your way through aliens. It looks like in the sequel they've listened to feedback, and it looks like it's going to have more of a story mode, which it's what I wanted, you know. And it looks like there's going to be more things to do outside of just shooting at xenomorphs. And without going into too much detail, they aren't going to have any microtransactions of any kind. Despite being a you can kind of call it a live service game and not a live. The thing is, I don't know how they support their games, right? They put out all this content which you can play in solo or co-op, and they put out free content for months and months afterwards, and you can literally just play it all for free, and there's no microtransactions. They did a cosmetic pack, like after the first one came out, but like it's all free. So whatever they're doing, it's working. People like it, and it looks like the sequel's going to be the sequel people want. So for me, looks like there's going to be more of a story mode, more stuff to do outside of shooting aliens. Logan, I know you loved the first game. What do you think about the sequel? Even though it's probably going to be revealed at Gamescom.
Yeah, I'm super stoked for it, and like you said, we'll kind of tiptoe around it because when stuff gets leaked like this, nobody wants to spoil the big stuff for them. But kind of the stuff you'd expect and a few things you didn't. Like the whole no microtransactions thing sounds great to me. I know that was kind of a thing with the first one where there was a bunch of skins and gear and stuff you could buy, but you didn't have to. It wasn't a pay for win game at all. But it was like if you really wanted to go hardcore and get like custom bandanas, tattoos, gun emblems, skins, like stuff you could, cards, whatever. And they've decided, it looks like, to basically expand their formula to where it's no longer just okay, we're here, we go to point A to B to C to D, boom, we get to the safe point or whatever, that mission's ends, act 2, then 3, then 4, and then done. They're expanding it, they're adding more story focused and content, and then there's going to be variety in the game modes and like decisions to do, like different options and stuff. And it sounds just really really cool as someone who enjoyed the first one and thought it was a good Left 4 Dead alien game basically. And the idea of them taking what they learned and really running with it and building upon a good base is awesome. And I can't wait for the official formal reveal of it.
Yeah, it's probably going to be Gamescom. I think the way they did it last time was that, and I was actually shocked how they actually announced and revealed the game last time. They announced the first game with a CGI trailer, followed by gameplay literally 30 seconds later, and then they released the game. I think it was 4 to 5 months later. Like, it had no delays and it works. Day one, no bugs. Like it's rare for you to see that with like any game these days, which I really like. And I think the developers have proven themselves. So if they fix all the issues that people had with the first game, plus it has an like expanded story, it's gonna be pretty amazing. And I love the fact that we're getting like alien games kind of semi regularly now. But yeah, it looks like that's going to be Gamescom. Can't wait for that. Now, before we continue with the show, if you're enjoying it, please like, share, and subscribe. Liking the show does actually help the YouTube algorithm, and I hate doing these little ads, but it helps, and I'm encouraged to do it. But if you want to support the channel via likes, comment, and all that stuff, it's really appreciated. If you want to support via super chats, want anything read out, that's greatly appreciated. Anyway, we'll continue with the show. So the first Descendant hit 10 million players. I'm not surprised. Like, one, it's been a very memeable game, you know, with some of the extremely revealing outfits that people have as skins. Like, the developers know what they're doing, and it's clearly working. They're probably making a lot of money off those skins, but like, people are playing for the gameplay. You know, it's free to play in a world where most free to play games at the minute are kind of just like PvP and battle royale games. But you have this kind of free to play, and it's also like Destiny's free to play. It's a third person Destiny, Korean sci-fi, and it just works. Logan, I know we talked about earlier in the show, but like, what's your overall impression of the gameplay so far?
I'm enjoying it. It's fun. I like the gunplay. It feels smooth and fluid, and it feels a little bit Mass Effect like the gunplay a little bit to me at least. And Destiny, I can obviously see the clear inspiration from it, and I haven't gotten too far in it, but I've been enjoying what I play. I like the diversity of abilities. It has an interesting premise. It You can tell it's kind of just like insane, and it's like maybe not the most fluid story, but I like the idea of these mech entities, and then like this guide, and like these artifacts, and you have all these abilities, and you work together in a group or by yourself. It's like Destiny, where you can meet a whole bunch of people in a lobby and then go off to do missions, or just play solo, however you want to play it. And yeah, and then as far as customization, yeah, like you can be as serious as you want, like straight up, like, all right, this is a military, like uniform, or like medieval armor type stuff, or assassin get up, to as goofy or wild as you want, with you've got French maids running around, you got bunny rabbits, you've got it's got something for everybody's personal preference. And it's just a really interesting, fun game, and it's free. You don't have to buy anything in the game if you do not wish to.
Yeah, I mean, like, when it comes to free to play stuff, I don't really buy skins. Like, I play one free to play game, and that's Fall Guys. Right? You only have to buy one season pass, one battle pass once, and then you're good. You can just earn all the points in game that way. But that's that. But like, the first Descendant, like, that gameplay is just phenomenal. I'd be interested to see what their long-term roadmap's like, because they haven't really talked about future expansions. They've just talked about future sort of like raids and content drops throughout the rest of the year. But I mean, maybe they didn't expect over 10 million players within 2 weeks, so they're probably scrambling together right now, trying to come up with a long-term roadmap. Before we continue with the topic, which I've got quite a lot to say on, we have another super chat for $5 by Nick W. Thank you very much. He says, you guys were talking about Warhammer. Warhammer Bolt Gun is a great boomer shooter. Now, Logan, I know.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah, like, I played Bolt Gun. Bolt Gun it's Doom, but you're a space marine. you know, it's I'd be shocked to see how many people that play Warhammer games actually know about Warhammer, because I know nothing. I know diddly squat. Like, Logan, you said you know nothing about Warhammer, but like, the game's genuinely fun. And Bolt Gun, I'd say Bolt Gun's probably one of the best Warhammer games I've ever played. The art style is amazing. It's like, it's hard to put. It's like Sega Mega Drive graphics, but new. 3D Sega Mega Drive graphics, but it's a phenomenal game. If I remember correctly, there's a button that's just taunt. If you press Y, you literally just shout Space Marine stuff, Centurion stuff, and I loved my time with the game. No, Logan, you played a lot of that, and you also played the expansion, right?
Yeah, I beat the game and I beat the expansion. It's phenomenal. It is one of the best modern boomer shooters out there. Like you can clearly tell that they are fans of Quake and Doom, and it they perfectly encompass those, retro, futuristic and modern all thrown in there, and the gunplay is supreme. Every weapon feels different. The abilities, just basically Hulk smash everything. And it's a very loose story. You don't have to have a whole bunch of knowledge of Warhammer. It's just your big armored guy with a big old gun, go kill aliens. And glory to the emperor. That's the story. That's it. And it's a lot of fun. It and I'd say Proteus are two of the clearly linked, very similar types in that vein that have been doing very well.
Yeah, I'd say out of like all of the Warhammer games I've played, Bolt Gun's probably one of the best. And the Warhammer games, like they clearly aimed at fans that know what they're talking about, but they mainly aimed at people that know nothing. Like the story's very minimal, just to let you know, hey, you need to get past these bad guys for the Emperor. Da 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 da, like all that stuff, and like they're fun. Like there's another game on Xbox. If I remember correctly, it's called Warhammer 40k Inquisitor. It's essentially Diablo, but Warhammer 40k. Um, for the amount of games I play for Warhammer, I may as well just read the books as well because like I just seem to play a
Uh,
Warhammer game every week.
yeah, there's so many of them. There's Martyr, there's Inquisitor, there's Hives of Necromunda, there's the Necromunda hired gun, which is basically like you're a Boba Fett guy with a
Yeah,
mech. Um, Basically a mech, a dog on this Mars type planet, and it's really super cool. Like there's so many games in that universe.
yeah. And the thing is about Warhammer 40k, I think that's probably going to pop off really soon in general, like for like the normies, and that can be classed as a normie when it comes to 40k, because Henry Cavill's working on the Amazon TV show, and like that's going to introduce the world to so many people. So video games are going to sell more. The books are going to sell, and those little figurines. Like, by the way, when the pandemic kicked off, almost every store in my local like city, Durham, like shut down, and there's a games workshop that's been there since I think since before I was born. Right, that place is never going to shut down because those little Warhammer 40k figures, people spend a lot of money on those things. Like, I think Warhammer has to be one of the biggest franchises that most people don't realize how big it is. It's an unbelievably huge franchise. Again, it should be a franchise I should really get into. And I have been told that once you buy one of those figurines and start painting them, you can't stop. Like I nearly did.
Yeah, it's a gateway
Yeah,
addiction.
yeah. Like what? A bit of a tangent, but when the first lockdown kicked off and everyone got bored straight away, I was on Amazon, literally looking at Gundams and Warhammer kits. I was thinking,
Gundams are awesome.
yeah, like I've nearly fell down the Gundam rabbit hole several times. It's gonna happen one day. I'm just gonna pull the trigger at some point. I've had a certain model in my basket for like 4 years, um, it but at some point one of those things is happening. Warhammer or Gundams. Either way, it's an expensive win. But yeah, thank you for the 5 Nick W. Warhammer Bolt Gun is excellent, and if I remember correctly, it's also in Game Pass.
It is.
Yeah, people need to play it. Again, if you like Doom, it's Doom, but Warhammer. It's super nuts. Um, Now let's continue. Oh yeah, the first Descendant, 10 million players. People love it. What can I say? We'll probably get some updates soon about future content. I wouldn't be surprised if we hear more Tokyo Game Show and Gamescom, because that game is super huge in Japan, as far as I know, and in Europe. It doesn't surprise me that's huge in Europe, but it is what it is. And I want to talk about this quickly. Is that, and I personally believe this, and I know Jason Schreier's mentioned this in the past, even though I don't necessarily like the dude. I think the well for live service games is drying up. You know, the first Descendant's popping off. It's free to play and it's a third person shooter, and plus the meme ability and just the skins and all that stuff. Like it was bound to be popular. But I honestly think the well for live service games has dried up because in the past year we've seen so many live service games shut down that EA, they've took a new focus looking at single player again. Microsoft, they essentially focus solely on single player now. I mean, they've already got Call of Duty, Halo, and Gears and all that stuff in the bag, so they don't really need any more multiplayer. And I personally think there's not much more money left to be in live service games. You know, if you go back 10 years ago, all these developers were saying, hey, here's our new game, and we're going to have a 10-year plan for content. And every single one of those games failed outside of Destiny. You know, Destiny may have its issues, but you have to admit, Destiny, it's still around, it's still popping off, and people love that franchise. But like everything else failed. You know, the Division, they've wanted to do several spin-offs, but all been cancelled. Unfortunately, I was looking forward to one of them. And, you know, Division's in a weird place. It's continuing to get seasons. The Avengers game failed. Anthem failed. They left the Christmas lights on. And, Logan, we've talked about this before. Like, the hype for Anthem when that came out was ridiculous. Like, I was going to have a weekly podcast about Anthem, right? I had art made for a weekly Anthem podcast, and then the game came out. The netcode was absolutely trash. And as a British person, I don't say trash often. Trash. Terrible trash. Like, you're meant to be flying around like Iron Man, and it's meant to feel good, right? It didn't feel good. I was like flying all over the place. It was like Modern Warfare when you had really bad connection. That's what it was like. And it was just terrible. And you know, Concord on PlayStation, I'll put it out there, I do not like hero shooters. I don't play Overwatch. I don't play Paladins. That's not my cup of tea. And like the amount of people that aren't talking about Concord in good ways, non-existent. And you know, with it being a Sony game, you have the lot that are forcing themselves to talk about it and like it. But like, nobody was asking for a Overwatch clone. And now that I think about it, nobody's asking for more live service games. Like say Nick in chat mentioned Helldivers 2. Like, Helldivers 2 popped off amazingly when that came out, and nobody's talking about it now. And that didn't really have a roadmap. And also, I do think they need to expand platforms, but we'll be talking about that in a bit. But like, I think live service outside of your Halos, your Call of Duties, your Battlefield's screwed. You know, Call of Duty, Halo, you know, stuff like that. I think that the well is dry, and people are done with them, because I think a lot of people are falling back to like people like me, or being like me, where like I don't care about live service. I play Call of Duty with one of my friends socially, and I play Fall Guys socially. I don't care about live service games. I will rather buy 20 single-player games before I even play a live service game. And I think that I'm seeing this more and more often, and people just don't really have any energy for, you know, more multiplayer, more live service games. Like, Logan, what do you think? Because it seems like that live service games are just kind of dying, really.
Yeah, I agree. I think the era of live service is coming to a close. Thankfully, mercifully. Like, there have been a few I enjoy, but for the most part, I kind of just start feeling resentful after a while. And start going like, this shouldn't be a second job to play this game, to get all this stuff, and to, you know, like they just try to keep you engaged constantly with tasks and management stuff or new battle passes and stuff that, and then like predatory pricing in stores and just, or it's like, oh, we promised there'll be a story update, and then the story update is literally a 20-second cutscene where they're like, congratulations guys, you did it, and then that's it. And it's just, I'm just glad it's coming to a close. Like I think there should be some out there for the people who really enjoy them, and especially those enduring franchises like you mentioned, Halo and some of these others, to where you can constantly keep it going, but also give people single player experiences or more traditional multiplayer experiences, because like you said, I'm not a big hero shooter guy myself, and Concord, frankly, just it looks like Dollar Tree Overwatch, or Dollar Store Overwatch, and coming from Sony, that's embarrassing. And then Destiny's got its own issues right now with Bungie and stuff. And honestly, I think the hero shooter that's gonna do well is Marvel, surely based on name and power of the branding. Like, think about it. Who better to have a hero quote game than Marvel, who has so many heroes and all their abilities and customization and stuff? Like, honestly, I think that one is going to curb stomp and eat Concord's launch when it comes out. And I don't like these games. I don't want them to become the predominant thing, but I do see if any of them having success, I think it's going to be the Marvel one.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I think like not to talk about Concord much, but like a $40 live service game that also has microtransactions, like I can't see that taking off. Again, the thing is, I don't like Overwatch. Right? I think Overwatch is a bad game, mainly because I don't like that. I don't like those types of games. Like, there's nothing in Overwatch that appeals to me on any level. So if a game copies that, I'm still not interested. But it's like, it's weird how times have changed, because during the 360 generation, you had all these single player games that were great. They got sequels that also had tacked on multiplayer modes. And that happened because Call of Duty was making insane money off map packs. So, Dead Space 2 had multiplayer. One of the Tomb Raider games had multiplayer. Bioshock 2, I think, also had multiplayer. Like, everything was getting multiplayer modes, but none of them were like, no one was playing them, you know? Mass Effect 3 multiplayer popped off, but that's because the free content was like legitimately free and it was amazing. Uh, but like, everything failed. And then last generation, remember how last generation, where in like 2014 and 15, developers were for some reason obsessed with a 5v1 mode? Like, it was so weird, because like, hey, we've got this cool idea. It's asymmetrical multiplayer, where it's 1 versus 4 or 5. I think Evolve was one of the first major ones. It's like, no, that's not interesting. And I played Evolve's beta. I was in the closed beta, the open beta. I played a lot of that game, and let me tell you, I was bored out of my mind. Bored out of my mind hole. Right? Yeah,
It
Uncharted.
should have been so cool,
Yeah,
but it just fell flat. Like, the monsters were awesome. Like, I remember like the Goliath beast
yeah.
and like the Cthulhu looking thing, and then the Scylla, which is like basically like a the many-headed dragon thing like Hercules fights.
Cerberus.
Like that, and then something else. And it should have been really fun, but it just wasn't.
Yeah. There was so much potential in that game, but like, the developers were obsessed with those 4v1 modes. Like Fable Legends, I played a lot of Fable Legends, and let me tell you, it was not fun. Like, beautiful game, beautiful, but not fun on any level. Uncharted 2 multiplayer, that was fun. But like I'd say like 9 times out of 10, like multiplayer modes that generation just felt tacked on, unnecessary. Last generation, and then 2017, PUBG popped off hard, and then Fortnite copied it like a week later, but they did it better. And then we got battle passes. By the way, Epic Games, thank you for inventing battle passes. That's sarcasm. Everyone has a battle pass now. Hell, I play Fall Guys, and that's got a battle pass. So like it's weird how like multiplayer's like been changing over time, and just now like Battlefield is non-existent. And by the way, I've tried to get hyped about every Battlefield game for a long time, and after 3, it's just not been good. 4 was broken so badly that if you started the campaign, you had to play it in one go, otherwise it would delete your save. The multiplayer was broken, it wouldn't save your loadout, so you had to make your new loadout every single time you played it. For almost a year, they didn't fix that bug. Battlefield Hardline, forgettable. Battlefield 1, it was good, and then after the first week, everyone turned into snipers. It wasn't fun anymore. Battlefield, what was it called? Battlefield 5, not good. Battlefield 2042, again, not good. Like, what were they thinking? Having operators in a Battlefield game. Disgraceful. Battlefield 1 wasn't a bad game, but they removed the fact that there was no traditional multiplayer, traditional campaign. I hated that. The war stories thing just isn't for me. I like a one cohesive campaign, but like Battlefield's just been in a weird place for a long time. I'm ranting about live service games. Long story short, I think the well is run dry. We're not going to see tons of like live service games announced at showcases anymore. I know Sony has a bunch in the works, but that's their business plan going forward. But like as for Microsoft and third-party developers, like we're going to see less. We're going to see less. We're going to be talking about Xbox 360 nostalgia, but like Battlefield 3, Battlefield Bad Company 2, I played a lot. Like those were like genuinely fun games, and it's just a weird contrast to now as to where like sometimes I could be playing a multiplayer game, and I'm literally bored. Actually bored while I'm being shot at. It's weird how times have changed, but it is what it is. Anyway, we'll move on. We still have a bunch to talk about. You know what? Xbox pulling out of Europe. This got debunked almost immediately. So it turned out that I believe it was Tom Warren that came out and said that, or he reported that Europe was going to be pulled out of for Microsoft, and they were only going to advertise controllers, games, and Game Pass. And it was debunked almost immediately by Jez Corden from Windows Central. I think that was a weird thing to come out with. There's been this like forced negativity against Xbox for a long time now. They actually have an uptick in news. They had a great showcase. They showed multiple consoles off. One has a disc drive, so that cancelled this whole discless narrative thing. Xbox has been strong in the past in certain European countries, but mainly the UK, right? They've ruled in the UK before, but outside of that, they did okay in France during the 360 generation, okay in Germany and Spain. But like Xbox as a brand has never been big in continental Europe. They just haven't. Even like with the 360 at the prime of the 360, Europe was kind of like non-existent for them. PlayStation's always been king in Europe. It's always been that way. Okay, so it was Tom. So like it I knew it wasn't going to happen because like Microsoft, they want to grow their business, and my biggest point of contention for Microsoft when it comes to them is marketing. Their marketing isn't that good. They don't tell you what the console does on the box. They don't market properly in all regions, and like they could grow in multiple regions if they actually marketed. Xbox is big in what? The UK, US, Canada, Mexico, Brazil. That's kind of it, But PlayStation, they are a big brand. They a Japanese brand, and they're big pretty much everywhere. Xbox, they need to market more across Europe. Game Pass will be big in Europe. They're just like, I put it like this, Logan. I live in the UK, obviously. And there's people I speak to that are hardcore gamers that don't know Game Pass exists.
Yeah, the whole Game Pass thing is insane. That for some reason it still has not come across to the normies what Game Pass is. Just like we talk about backwards compatibility all the time, like the idea of going into a game store and people that are employees at a game store did not know that the system did not know the features of the system, which is insane. Like, you got to get the message out there better than how they've been doing it. They've been doing a better job with some other stuff, but Game Pass is their big thing. Everybody knows Netflix, everybody knows Hulu, Spotify, Disney Plus, Paramount, Apple Plus, whatever. But for some reason, Game Pass is still like a big O question mark to a lot of people.
Yeah, like everyone has heard of Netflix, and like you could probably go to like some random island in the middle of nowhere, and there's probably someone subscribed to Netflix. So like Game Pass, like when I've described Game Pass to people that have not known anything about it, they've actually been shocked. Like one of my friends like was literally asking me like, "Well, so you get these games for free?" And I'm like, "No, but you pay for the service." He's like, "Okay, but you get games in this service every month." I was like, "Yeah." He just couldn't believe it as a concept, even though he subscribes to Netflix and Disney Plus and Amazon. Like it's like for video games, for a lot of people, it's still a new novel concept. And I just think it's kind of funny and sad at the same time because like Game Pass, look, the price is going up sucks. Nobody likes the idea of like services costing more. And it kind of hit me last night. You know, I got the email from Microsoft saying, "Hey, in September, the price of Game Pass Ultimate is going up to $14.99 a month." I kind of thought, well, the amount of games I play because of Game Pass, and you know the perks I use, the discounts and stuff. By the way, the discounts is probably one of the most underrated things for Game Pass. There's a Game Pass sale going on at the minute, which most of the games in the sale aren't even in Game Pass. It's like Hogwarts Legacy, what else? Avatar, all that stuff. RoboCop, like massive sales for AAA games that aren't in the service, and like I get so much value from that to me, $14.99. Like I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Um, so like when I heard that like the whole like Xbox pulling from Europe thing, I didn't believe it because they want to grow Game Pass. You know, Game Pass is their main thing they push now, and it'll grow more. Like I know Call of Duty is going to pop off big later this year because Call of Duty being in Game Pass day one, I don't think people really realize how big that's going to be. You know, in I think it was last year when Microsoft and Activision they fixed the Xbox 360 servers for Call of Duty games. Call of Duties were popping off, right? I know people that bought Xbox Series X's to play old COD games. Like, that's crazy. And, you know, with the game being in the service, like, I can only imagine what their marketing's going to be like later in the year. Like, slapping Black Ops all over Game Pass marketing, day one, all that stuff. Like, people will subscribe, get consoles and all that stuff, but, like, pulling out of Europe, it's not happening. They don't come out with a new program where, hey, you get a brand new, you know, Xbox controller with your Amazon Fire TV stick and a month of Game Pass. They're not going to pull out because there will be people that buy Amazon Fire TV sticks and they maybe want a more premium experience with the 4K and all that stuff. And they'll get a Series X or Series S, you know. But yeah, pulling out of Europe, that I didn't believe it immediately. And it just seems like we have this like continuation of like clickbait every single day. So it turns out that where was it? Oh, Halo. Apparently 343 were kind of slowing down on making Halo, and again, Jez Corden from Windows Central debunked that again. Apparently Halo 343 has multiple Halo games in development, which I'm very happy about because I play single player stuff. So like single player is obviously going to be a focus for Halo. You know, Halo Infinite came out with not much multiplayer content. They've completely 180'd that now. Like, Like, Logan, would you say Halo's multiplayer right now is in a good place?
I'd say it's thriving right now. It obvious like if it had come out in this state, like I think the timeline would have been very different for a lot of things with Xbox and image and everything. But it had the rough launch. It is what it is. But the multiplayer right now is fantastic, and it's the single player community of Halo fans who are. Frankly, it's been shameful
Yeah.
how they've been treated by 343, the single player Halo fans that are well engrossed and immersed in the story, the campaign, the books, the novels, the show, whether you like it or not, like movies, all their stuff. Like those fans have been just cast aside and left to dry until they get their stuff together. And they need to toss us a bone. Like give the single player fans something.
Yeah, I mean, I know certain Affinity's working on a project, and I 99% think that's Halo. It just makes sense, you know. They said they're working on an established IP, but like for 343 to say that they're working on multiple projects, like that's good. And like you said, like we've had no single player content. With Halo Infinite, we were told that this is going to be one of those 10-year games, and it's going to get new content throughout. Like as someone that does not play Halo multiplayer, I was looking forward to some campaign expansions, and we never got that. And it's a shame because like Halo Infinite is kind of really built well for that. You have the Halo ring, which is open world. Like they could have just done so much with different biomes and new enemy types, and they just never did that. 343 is perfectly capable with making good Halo. They just need the time. And honestly, I'm gonna have a little bit of a rant here. I think there's a chunk of the Halo fan base that are part to blame. 343.
Yes.
The 343s had this vision for their Halo game for a long time, and no matter what they do, people complain. Halo 4 added sprint. There's people that in 2024 still complain about sprint in a Halo game. That's mind-boggling to me. Like, you don't want to run in a video game. You don't want to play as a space marine, a badass space marine that can run. Imagine Captain America if he could only walk a brisk pace. Be pretty boring. And by the way, Master Chief used to run in cutscenes, but we just forget that didn't happen. And as far as I know, we were meant to get sprint in the original Halo, but we didn't because of technical reasons. That's something I read somewhere. But I think Halo, again, the multiplayer is in a great place. I just want to see some single player stuff. Again, I don't play multiplayer. And like we used to wait 4 to 5 years in between Halo games, like mainline Halo games, and like that's kind of accepted for AAA games. But the problem with Halo Infinite is and I think the Halo Infinite's campaign is brilliant, by the way. I love that campaign. I love the dynamic between Chief and the pilot. The new enemy types. I love the new vehicles. It was a very fun game. I got what I wanted from it. It's just I would like more. Because again, I don't touch the multiplayer, but I'm sure with 343, given the chance that they can, make what they want, stop listening to the fan base too much. A lot of people that complained about Halo for years went into Halo Infinite perfectly happy because they were listening to the fan base and making it more like Combat Evolved. And it's like, to me, it's like I want the developer to make what game I want, right? Stop listening to the fans, which can be pretty toxic. Like, there's YouTube accounts, by the way, that exclusively cover Halo, and 99% of it is whining. Like, it's crazy. But yeah, Halo, I'm sure they're going to do something good with this, and maybe we'll see certain Affinity's game next year. I think Gamescom would be a bit too soon for that, but multiple Halo games can't go wrong. So Modern Warfare 3, that's rumoured to come to Game Pass. Now, I don't believe a lot of Game Pass rumours. a lot in the past have turned out to be fake. I do believe the Avatar one, like we said earlier in the show, but and this is from Tom Henderson on Twitter, which his Call of Duty stuff tends to be very accurate, like pinpoint accurate. So apparently, Modern Warfare 3 for 2023. I wish they changed the name at some point to something else. But it looks like Modern Warfare 3 from last year is going to be coming to Game Pass this month. Now, I didn't believe it at first because, that Call of Duty has marketing deal with PlayStation. But it looks like maybe they've worked past it. It looks like it might be happening. And as someone that's playing Call of Duty, let me tell you, this is the Call of Duty that got me back into COD. I love Modern Warfare 3. The campaign is very short, but it's sweet. But the multiplayer is fun. The weapons just pop off, and you get some really cool Warzone Resurgence stuff. And by the way, if you're subscribed to Game Pass right now and you listen to this, you get exclusive Black Ops 6 skins, which you can use in Warzone right now, just by being subscribed to Game Pass. It literally pops up on your screen while you're paying COD. But yeah, Logan, it looks like Call of Duty's coming to Game Pass this month. I know you haven't played Modern Warfare 3 yet, but what do you think?
I'm stoked for it because I haven't played the reboot Modern Warfare trilogy yet all the way through. So this is a perfect excuse to get on that. And hopefully they bring some of the older CODs as well. Or maybe this is just they're going to do like the major, most recent one and then wait a little bit and then, Black Ops 6 comes out and then wait a little bit and then dump the other Call of Duty games after they've had their time to shine. But it's a huge deal, and this will, like, Starfield was a humongous launch. Gears games, some of the other games they've launched in Game Pass, Halo Infinite. But as far as, like, outside of just the core Xbox people, like, this will be by far the biggest title they've launched in Game Pass. So I'm very excited to see it, and I think it's gonna put up great numbers, and I hope they bring the other ones soon. And yeah, I'm excited to play through the reboot trilogy.
Yeah, the reboot games are really good, and I think it's funny. Like Call of Duty is mainly known for multiplayer, but I'm really excited to see more people's impressions of the campaigns. The Modern Warfare reboot is excellent. Like Modern Warfare 2019, it's so good. It has some of the best missions in the entire franchise, in my opinion. Modern Warfare 2 2022. Yeah, that's right. Excellent. Damn good game. And Modern Warfare 3, it's a shorter game, but that was originally going to be an expansion, so it's kind of expected, but it's got open missions where you basically choose which way you want to do objectives. It's a fun game. But the fact that it'll be coming to Game Pass, that's huge. A lot of the stuff you do earn in game will be carrying over from Warzone to the next, Warzone and all that stuff. I don't know how the skins are going to work with Black Ops 6 because the premium skins you pay for in COD have transferred from Modern Warfare 2 to Modern Warfare 3. So I don't know what's going to happen because Black Ops being its own thing, it's slightly modified engine. They're going to have to be very careful about how they announce this stuff, but we are going to see multiplayer in action in August, where I'm sure they'll talk about all the skins and all that stuff. But I think it's going to be an exciting time for ABK games coming to Game Pass because there's so many they can go that can go to the service. It's actually kind of ridiculous. And if they can sort out the licenses for a bunch of games like Transformers, which I will port beg for days, if they can get that sorted, it's going to be a good time, really. And when we, what? While we talk about this stuff, let's talk about the Xbox 360 quick because the Xbox 360 is in a weird place at the minute. Good, and bad. The bad being, the 360 store on 360 is getting shut down this month. Almost made it 20 years, but then again, we've never heard of an online store stay open for 19 years on a console, so it's the first of its kind. And what a 19 years. I think that the Xbox 360, it's had its time to shine. It's been a while, but what a console. what a diverse library of games. Ridiculous. Uh, Microsoft have been putting sales on every few weeks for a bunch of games. As far as I can tell, there's about 280 games you can buy that are only on 360 consoles digitally. And a lot, like I put it like this: there's some games that are about I think 80 cents in the US. I think Dark Star 1 is $1, which is a sci-fi RPG where you play as a starfighter pilot. The 360, man, like as someone that covers Xbox exclusively on the channel, like let me tell you, like I love the Xbox Series X. I think it's a great console. I think the Xbox One X was a great console. That 360, man, there was nothing like it. The Xbox Live Arcade, the way they introduced indies each month, people got really excited about arcade. Multiplayer really popped off. The indie scene popped off. Just like the range of games we were getting was ridiculous. I look at my shelf and like my 360, it didn't look like we had a bad year during the 360. Every single year, interesting games coming out all the time. And like there's still multiplayer games on 360 that still have really active fan bases. But like Logan, I know you want to talk about this, but like the store's shutting down soon. It's kind of the end of an era, so to speak.
Yeah, it'll be a sad day once July 29th hits and it officially closes a chapter on a console that, I would say is in all my years of gaming, I still think that generation was probably the best single generation of games. Like, not only on that, but, PS3 and then the Wii and, GameCube overlap a little bit. And it just, that era was just something else. And, I know nostalgia is a heck of a drug, whatever, but like just looking at all the releases, like, I don't buy as many physical games as I used to, but I look at my shelf and by far the most games I have are from that generation. And, you know, I have quite a few, Xbox One, PS4, and Switch generation as well, but, by far the majority of the games that of my library that were built up were from that generation. And seeing the store close is just it's sad. Like, it there comes a point where it doesn't make sense for them to keep the store running if there's not something specific to it that is needed. And, you know, it is what it is. Uh, you know, Ideal world they wouldn't have to, but they do. And yet definitely check out the games that are on sale. I did notice this time that there are a few ABK games in there on this last sale list. Like Gun is on there, and that was made by Neversoft, and it's an Activision IP that Xbox now owns. Singularity is on the list. I think Prototype 1 and 2 are on it. Um, I think Space Marine was on that list as well, even though it's not, ABK. And there was Dark Messiah, which is made by Arcane. Why that game was never made BC, I do not know, but it's on that list. And Black, like I mentioned last time, it's $1, and it's one of the single best FPS games I have ever played in my life, and it's $1. That's insane. And so definitely check out the sale before it's gone. There are some titles that are BC that are on it. And on to happy news is they're keeping the 360 vibes rolling with a brand new dashboard for the Series XS UI based off the old 360 blades. And it is so cool. I have set it on my Series X as my default. Super cool. Check it out.
Yeah, I love those very dynamic backgrounds. I think that they, I'm one of the Xbox fans that I prefer the second 360 UI. You know, the new Xbox experience. Um, like that to me was like peak UI. But like people love the blades, switching back and forth. I think that was the first thing I did when I got my 360 is just press the bumpers back and forth constantly to see how quick I can get the UI to change. But there's something so nostalgic about that UI. I know I always, whenever I post about Xbox UIs, I always get a few like replies saying, "Can we get that UI back?" Like, I wish there was a magical button we could press and change the UI to whatever we want. Because as much as I like the current Xbox dashboard, like that second, Xbox 360 dash was perfection. But like when it comes to the games, like it depends on what you want. Like the games I'm looking at, I'm probably going to be able to get maybe 10 games for about £30. Like some are like again really cheap. The Rise of the Tomb Raider, the Xbox 360 version, which a lot of people don't know there was actually a 360 version, and it's a technical marvel what they did on 360 with that game. It was essentially the last AAA like major game for the 360. Like what they did with that game, it's incredible. Like it looks like an early generation Xbox One game, and it's on a 360. Incredible. Don't know how they did it. But yeah, it's just a shame. I love that console. I will say this though, for people that are wanting to get games on the 360 before the store closes, buying games via the website is a bit buggy at the minute because ever since they changed the way the store works back end a few years ago, the web page is kind of crap, right? Because the 360 wasn't built in mind for all this, interconnectivity between devices. So, best way to do it is hook up your Xbox 360. You get your temporary password. It's a bit of a faff on, but once you get it done, purchase your games on the 360. And again, there's a bunch of games that some will surprise you to see which ones are still available in the store. And I'll be covering that in a video in the next week if people seem interested in that. But yeah, the 360, last hurrah, what a console. And I think more people like when the 360 store closes, you're still going to be able to get your updates. You're still going to be able to re-download games, which is good. Just the ability to purchase new games and DLC. And there's a lot of games on 360 at the minute that have really good DLCs. So keep a lookout for that. But yeah, it's kind of crazy though. When I turn on my 360 now, and just like look at the files on that. Like I've got like the 10-minute free avatar video, like the promotional avatar clip, like still on my 360. Back then we were getting like updates for video games with like megabytes, and now you have updates of like 40 gigs, 50 gigs. Like it's ridiculous, but I'm so nostalgic about the 360 generation because it was a better time, right? Everything was better. Multiplayer was better. Games in general were like, we had bigger releases every single year, more big releases. The indie scene, I mean, I think the indie scene now is great, but there was something about Summer of Arcade that was just so good. Like the games that were highlighted every year, like I think I got almost every single like live arcade game that was in the Summer Arcade. Like it was so good. Anyway, we'll move on. This isn't a nostalgia podcast. Now, Logan, I know you want to talk about machine games because it turns out they're working on multiple titles outside of Indiana Jones, and it looks like one of them is probably going to be Wolfenstein 3.
Yeah, we touched on this a bit last time, but there keeps being more and more LinkedIn posts and business updates and, job listings and stuff that are, seemingly showing that Machine Games is working on multiple games, and there was already the Quake stuff that was rumblings about, and that there was the Quake tease in their video for Indiana Jones that they had on the whiteboard, and then a whole bunch of other Quake rumors going on. Seems like Quake is in the works of some sort. And then, Wolfenstein, they never, finished that trilogy. Yes, there's technically Young Bloods, but I don't consider that really a Wolfenstein 3 per se. So I think there's definitely a story to be told the way this new Colossus ended. And I just I think that they've got multiple things in works besides Indiana Jones, which is going to release later this year. Clearly, they haven't just been, sitting on their hands. They've been busy, so look forward to more machine game stuff in the near future.
Yeah, I think the whole Quake thing and like the tease on the board behind Indiana Jones, like that kind of makes sense. Doom was basically a kind. I don't want to call it a dead franchise, but it was like a very quiet franchise for what Doom 3 released in what 2004, 2003.
It was on the OG Xbox,
Yeah,
Doom 3.
yeah, Doom 3. I love that game. Um, to think that game had like controversy when it came out because it was more of a horror game. But
I
like,
love it.
yeah, Doom 3 was great. Um, there's a version, by the way, there's a version right now people can get on Xbox One, Xbox Series, PlayStation, all that stuff, where you can have the flashlight turned on at the same time as using a gun. I think that,
Wow,
yeah,
that's so innovative.
yeah. I mean, it works, but it is what it is. Um, but like, I think it makes sense for like them to do Quake because like Doom was like hidden away for a long time, and then Doom 2016 absolutely blew people away. And if they can do the same with Quake, and give Quake a really cool main character, they could have that series pop off again. I think Quake's been hidden for too long. There was Quake Champions on PC. Um, as far as I know, it's not really a thing anymore. Like nobody talks about it. Um, but it seems like they could do so much with Quake with that universe. It being more. It's also sci-fi like Doom, but it's just way out there. And as for Wolfenstein 3, like we're not gonna include Youngblood. That had its issues. But like, they need to finish that storyline. Like there was so much potential with where that was going when they went to Mars. In the second half of the A New Colossus, like they could do so much with the story. And I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but it looks like you may fight a certain someone, which I won't mention on the channel, in a mech in the next game. So that'll be exciting. But yeah, it's good to see that Machine Games. They're one of my favorite developers. Like those Wolfenstein games, the first few, they knocked out of the park. Like those were some of the first games I played on the Xbox One for first-person shooters. Like technically, what they did on 360 with that version, incredible. I think they're one of the best developers in the industry, and I think them making an Indiana Jones game is perfect because it's going to be different. It's a different kind of action adventure game. But yeah, anyway, it looks like Wolfenstein 3 and Quake are probably going to be a thing. I just want to quickly talk about JRPGs coming to Xbox because people always tell me that I shouldn't expect Final Fantasy to come to Xbox. That I shouldn't talk about Final Fantasy, and the gatekeepers get really annoyed. If I post an AI picture of Cloud holding an Xbox controller, like that sends them over the edge. Which is kind of weird because Final Fantasy started off on Nintendo, so like I don't get the gatekeeping from that aspect. They just want that to be a very boxed in franchise where it's just them that play it. I don't understand it. It's a weird frame of mind. Persona and Yakuza they have active fan bases on Xbox now. Like I always see people making like fan art with like Yakuza and Persona and all that stuff, and that's really cool. Like if you were to say it like 5 or 10 years ago, oh yeah, by the way, these are beloved Japanese franchises on Xbox now, I wouldn't believe you because it seemed like an impossible thing to happen. But now it's like it's really cool. The new Atlas JRPGs coming to Xbox later this year, Metaphor ReFantazio. I didn't butcher the name that time. That game to me looks phenomenal. You're on an airship, going to do missions and all this stuff. It looks fantastic. Well, anyway, these are a bunch of JRPGs coming to Xbox, and they look fantastic. So one's called Fantasian Neo Dimension. This is a JRPG made by Mistwalker, the developers of Lost Odyssey. They've gone into it, and it's got 4K 60 FPS visuals. They've changed the difficulty because it's excruciatingly difficult on an iPhone. They've changed the difficulty, so that's good. Just a bunch of like quality of life improvements. There's a new JRPG coming to Xbox next year called Lost Helden. They announced Xbox with its release, which some people said wasn't going to happen. It's a kind of a PlayStation 1 era JRPG, which I don't think we have enough of. And weirdly enough, the PlayStation 1 era of game design has been coming back, which, again, I really like. Some diversity out there. There's another JRPG coming to Xbox called Armed Fantasia, which looks phenomenal. It's a JRPG that's fantasy and sci-fi, where you use basically like sort of sci-fi revolvers and stuff. And that's also turn-based. Visions of Mana is coming to Xbox next month, which is a big JRPG by Square. Dragon Quest III HD 2D is coming to Xbox, and surprisingly, it's getting a physical release in the UK on Xbox. Didn't see that coming, which I love the fact it's coming, I'll be picking that up. Suikoden 1 and 2 HD Remaster is coming out. Now, Konami actually has to start marketing the thing because they went quiet with that. And, Earthlock 2. Earthlock, the first game, underrated. They went in and actually like remastered the game. I think it was like 2 years after the game came out and fixed all of its issues. And they actually gave it free to people that owned the first game. But it just looks like we have a bunch of JRPGs coming to Xbox, and people say people don't buy them, but these happen to still come to the consoles. So, like, when I see people talk about games skipping Xbox, it is annoying. Some, like, the next major Monster Hunter game is coming to Xbox next year. Monster Hunter Wilds. Yeah, Monster Hunter Wilds. Big, massive, first open world ever Monster Hunter game. And it looks phenomenal, but we don't get the secondary games such as Monster Hunter Stories for a myriad of backwards compatible reasons. But like Xbox right now has more JRPGs coming to the platform than people realize. Like, people think they abandoned the platform. That's just not the case. There's plenty of cool games coming, and more are going to be announced over the coming months, which people will really like. Like, Logan, after what I've just talked about, would you say that the state of Japanese games on Xbox isn't as bad as people believe?
Yeah, it's a lot better than it's been. And I definitely don't think it's like in a dire strait like some people put it out there. Like there's nothing coming to the platform or everything skipping. There have been a few notable omissions recently, like Marvel versus Capcom and some other stuff like that. But for the most part, it seems like Xbox has really hit their stride with these indies to, mid AAA type studios and publishers to get Japanese games onto the platform. I'm really excited about Earthbound 2, or not Earthbound. Big difference. Um, that one coming to the platform because like you said, I remember getting the original one, and then they fixed everything and gave a free remaster to everybody who owned it. So getting the sequel to that, they're a good developer, they're talented, and they're dedicated. So looking forward to that, and yeah, just always let these people know that you want an Xbox version as well.
Yeah, people just need to keep letting them know, because these developers, they do listen. People just be polite. There's sometimes I always see people get really annoyed, and I get it, right? I'm annoyed when certain games don't come to the Xbox. But when you actively annoy someone and you're rude, people just don't listen, right? So if you want games to come over, be respectful, because then people listen. And from what I know, like the Kingdom Hearts HD collection came to Xbox because of the amount of people who were asking for it. And even though we got that game after 3, which again, I don't know what they were thinking, considering that has the most complicated story of all time. It works, So if people want more games to come over, be respectful. That's all people need, Like, if anyone, like, think about this. Anyone listening, if anyone's annoying to you in general, maybe it's in real life or Twitter, like, when they continue to yapper on, right, you kind of just lose focus and you don't pay attention to them anymore. That's what I do. I mute people in real life, right? Right? The amount of people that have just been talking to me and they've just annoyed me, it's like they don't exist. They're yapping away. They're talking to a black hole. I'm not there. Developers do that, right? Every time executive from Xbox gets tagged all the time, let me tell you, a lot of people get muted. Just saying. But again, there's plenty of cool games coming to Xbox, and honestly, I love the fact that JRPGs, like on Xbox, they picking up in Steam. Final Fantasy, it's going to be coming at some point. We've been told Square Enix has got Xbox in their multi-platform strategy going forward, so like it's all good. Plenty of stuff's coming. Now, Logan, have you got anything else you want to go over before we close out the show?
Nope. Just be kind, everybody, and just looking forward to Gamescom and hopefully some big Xbox announcements.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a bit weird because like Xbox, they rumored to have a large presence at Gamescom, but there's been no talk on a showcase. They haven't had a big showcase for Gamescom since I think 2015, so we'll have to wait and see. But apparently there's going to be a lot of games on the show floor, and if it's anything like last year, they're going to do maybe an hour-long kind of like podcast style on couches type of thing every day throughout the week. That's how they did the Age of Empires releases, which turned out to be really popular. But it looks like there's going to be plenty of stuff coming. And I think if you're on Xbox and PC and you like things like Age of Mythology, which is coming to Xbox this September, they're probably going to show a lot of that, including the single player story and all that stuff. Anyway, that's it for today's show. Logan, it's been great talking to you once again. Everyone in chat has been amazing. YouTube is an amazing platform. It doesn't always let people know that things are live. It's annoying. I'm trying to get better with this. And when it comes to a little update on the channel, I'm going to start having timestamps for topics starting from last week, really. So if you're coming back afterwards or if you want to re-listen to it, good on you. It's much appreciated. Timestamps will go live literally about a minute after the show ends. Anyway, we'll be back for another episode of All Things Xbox Podcast next Tuesday. Again, everyone in chat's been amazing. I should be dropping a video between now and next week. Tried to get it out last week, but issues happen in real life, unfortunately. But it should be out within the next few days. And if you like Xbox coverage and Xbox games and legacy stuff, I've got you covered. This week's going to be interesting. Anyway, we'll see you next week. We're out, everybody. Peace.